Woo! There's not enough energy in this room. Crank that music up. Stand up in your seats right now. Stand up. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. Don't believe me, just what? Don't believe me. Here we go. Pow! Wait a minute. All right, come on, people. Get some energy. There we go. All right, good job. All right, we needed to get some life back into the room right now because all of a sudden, everybody's starting to slow down. Great job, Susan Bennett. Give her a round of applause and what an interesting career, right? So today, I'm going to talk to you more about today's modern buyer. You've been hearing this for the last day and a half, over and over again, about something that's changing and something that we need to adapt to. But the difference is, we're going to focus on sales leaders and what you need to be thinking about to help address the change that has happened with our sales teams. So I want to first talk about a few companies and tell about a story. Now, some of you guys will remember these companies. Hopefully, all of us remember these companies. Some of us grew up walking into these stores and remembering how excited we were to be able to walk straight in and touch and play. In fact, some of us probably remember a jingle. I don't want to grow up, because maybe if I did. That's exactly right. I wouldn't be a Toys R Us kid. Now, these companies were multi-billion-dollar organizations. Billions of dollars. And who would have ever thought that at one point, our childhood would be stripped away from our own children or grandchildren? Toys R Us as an example. And who would have thought that we would not be able to walk down the street, block after block, and walk into a Blockbuster? And who would have thought that we wouldn't be able to walk into a bookstore, get our coffee, sit down, and enjoy reading? Now, what happened to these companies? Well, there are many theses that are written, and I don't know if Frank is in the room. I'm sure Harvard's produced a study around these things. But there are many theories, many theses, many components. But today, I'm going to focus on giving you an opportunity to select one of three answers. And what we want to be thinking about was, what happened to these companies who imploded? Did technology change the game on them? Number two, did customers want to buy differently? And number three, did leadership not adapt fast enough? Those are our three choices, all right? So for those of you that are in the room, I want you to raise your hand if you think technology changed the game on these companies. Raise your hand if you think that's the answer. Only about 10% of the room, all right? Now, if you think customers wanted to buy differently, raise your hand if that was the answer. Okay, about 20%. And the third, leadership didn't adapt fast enough. Raise your hand if you thought that was the answer. What's the real answer? All of the above. That's exactly right. The perfect trifecta of technology changing the game and the way in which customers wanted to buy differently and leadership sitting around the boardroom table in their local offices, working with their teams and not seeing the signs. The signs of which something was changing. What was changing? And as a result, all of these companies are gone, or hopefully Toys R Us reforms itself in some other transformation because something's a brewing with taking that name brand out there. Something will come back. How sad it was that they did not see the signs to be able to adapt fast enough. Now, the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what the heck does this mean to us as sales leaders in the room? Are we next? Do these types of changes, those three things that I just mentioned, does it affect us and does it affect our sales team? So let's first address the question, has technology changed the game? Now, you saw a lot of statistics yesterday about what has happened with the modern buyer. The modern buyer's changed the game, 62% through the buying journey, 6.8 buyers, now 10 buyers. You've seen all these different stats that are out there. I'm gonna bring some common sense, which I'm a 22-year sales veteran. 18 of those 22 years were spent inside of corporate. So I'm gonna bring some common sense to just pure sales thought leadership. Is that okay? Is that okay? All right. So what I'm gonna show you are 4 proof points that technology has changed the game on us and our sales teams. The first thing that I want you thinking about is number 1, today's modern buyer is digitally connected. Now I will show you some proof of that data to make sure that you understand when you walk out of this room, you're gonna say, yes, they are digitally connected, and answer the question, so what? What the heck does that mean for me and my sales team? Number 2, that today's modern buyer is socially engaged. Number 3, that today's modern buyer is mobile attached. And why do you care about that? And finally, number 4, today's modern buyer is video hungry. So, let's get into the first proof point. Number 1, I'm going to show you that today's modern buyer is digitally connected, and as a result, in 2015, worldwide, we owned 3.64, on average, connected devices. Do you know what is predicted to be by the end of this year? Take a wild guess. Yell out a number. 10, 8, 15, 30. The number is 6.58 connected devices by the end of this year per person worldwide. Now stop and think for just a moment. What are we doing on a connected device? Yell it out. What are we doing? Watching TV. We're researching, someone said. What else? Reading. Working. Gaming. What did you say? Quitting? Oh, tweeting. Don't quit. We are pushing and pulling information back and forth on a connected device. This is very important you understand this component. Common sense. We are pushing and pulling information every single day. If we are doing it as sales leaders, what do you think our buyers are doing? Same exact thing. Pushing and pulling information. Now, let's take a look at some US statistics regarding whether or not we are a socially engaged society. If we look at the stats for the US population, the US population had, in 2008, 10% of us had a social networking profile. And in 2019, 79% of the US population had a social networking profile. Now, there are over 200 different types of social networks. It includes the dating.com types of sites. But let's just yell out the big 6. Yell them out. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Not WhatsApp, not TikTok, not one of the big 6. Snapchat, good. And one more, someone said it? YouTube, exactly, YouTube. Now, we'll touch on YouTube in just one moment. So think about this. The big 6, you just rattled them off. How many of you have a LinkedIn profile in this room? Raise your hand. Unanimous. How many of you actually have a Twitter profile? Raise your hand. About 75% of the room. How many of you watch videos on YouTube once a week? Everybody. How many of us have a Facebook account? Raise your hand. And now Instagram? All right. So if we are on these platforms, where do you think our buyers are at? Same exact place. Now the question is how do we actually engage with our buyers on these platforms? What's the right way? And we'll touch on that in just a moment. But I want you thinking as a sales leader, what the heck is happening here in our environment? And how do I take these trends that are taking place right now and make sure that my sellers are effectively and efficiently using these types of tools and technologies. Now, this next picture I'm going to show might embarrass some of you. And I'm going to prove to you that we are a mobile-attached community. Just with one picture. Now, when I show this picture, I want everybody in the room who has done what it is that you're seeing on this picture to raise your hand if you have done this. Now, you will be embarrassed. I promise you some of you will be. But I'm going to be the first person to raise my hand and say, yes, I admit I have done this. Fair? Are you with me? Are you with me? Yes. All right, here we go. How many of you have taken your phone to the bathroom? We got a hand over here like, I'm afraid to do it. The crazy part is 10 years ago, we would never show a picture like this on a keynote. We would never talk about it at dinner. We would never talk about it at coffee break. But the reality is we walk into the stall, and sometimes we hear John saying, yeah, okay, I'll get back to that later. Like, what? Stop! Don't do that in the stall. Don't do that in the stall. My point is that we are mobile attached. We are constantly pushing and pulling information. And if you think about this, as a mobile attached, we as sales leaders need to go back to our office saying, wait a minute, sales enablement leaders, sales people, what are you sending to your buyers? Because if that message is not a one-touch scroll message, you have lost your buyer. Approximately how many words is that? Well, you could look at a number of different studies and anywhere between 110 to 200 words. If your messages are longer than that, you have done a disservice to your seller and you have lost your buyer on the first click into that particular message. We have short snippets of time, and this is proof that what we're doing is what exactly our buyers are doing. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is that we are video hungry. So, if we look at these particular statistics, 90% of customers say that video helped them make a buying decision. Now, stop for a moment and think about this. How many marketers do we have in the room? Marketers, raise your hand. A few. Top 5 marketing tactics for 2020 includes, drum roll please. Drum roll please. Video. Why? Think about this. Did you know the second largest search engine in the world is YouTube? YouTube. We go to YouTube for learning how to do anything. How to do anything. Even our home projects where they become an utter failure. The reality is that you heard yesterday one of our speakers talk about how what we do now in our consumer life, we've now transitioned that into our professional life. We at Vengreso like to call it the prosumer. We are a professional consumer of information. In addition, whether or not senior executives engage with this, here's the statistic that shows that senior executives absolutely are looking at videos. Generally, less than 2 minutes, preferably 1 minute long videos. So if you're taking notes and your sellers are creating videos or marketing team is creating videos for you, sure, long form video content, good. But if you're looking for a video to go along with the message to bring value to a buyer, you better make sure you've got that 1 to 2 minute long video. Or you're teaching your sellers how to use that. So, we've just proven we are digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and now video hungry. The question you now ask is, with that proof, our B2B customers, are they buying differently? Now, you heard a number of different statistics yesterday talking about the millennials, boomers, Gen Xers, and these stats are excellent and things that you should be thinking about, like, whoa, wait a minute, something's changed. Everybody who's in the room that's a sales leader at the age of 45 and older, my age and older, we grew up selling in a very different way. We cold called, we knocked on doors, we canvassed parks, we went to events. That's how we grew up selling, guys. But that is not at all how today's modern buyer is asking us to engage with them. And the proof comes in this study right here. This is from CEB, and this showcases, a study that CEB did across generations on the B2B buyer using digital sources throughout the buying journey. They wanted to compare millennials versus Gen Xers versus boomers. At the early, middle, and late stage. What was early? Prior to talking to a sales rep. What was the middle? After talking to a sales team. And what was the late? Close to actually purchasing a contract, okay? Simple as that. So what happened? Answer number one, no surprise here. Millennials use digital at the beginning of the stage all the way through to the end of the stage. What about our Gen Xers? Our Gen Xers, wow. We caught up with the times. We started using digital to be able to do research and validation prior to even talking to a sales team. Throughout the middle, and then towards the end, what happened? We still worked off of good old-fashioned gut relationships, yeah? And now we look at Gen Xers. Still according to yesterday's statistics, about 20+% of the workforce that are in those usually senior buying level positions. What are those senior leaders doing? Answer, at the beginning, 86%, and at the middle, way at the top, they're going out and validating. And still at the end, they're reducing because they're based upon what? The good old-fashioned gut. Relationships. So the reality as we think about this is we cannot no longer, as sales leaders, we have to stop turning a blind eye. We have to stop saying, go pound the phone, make another 100 calls. No, we have to be asking our sellers, how many conversations did you have today? And I don't care whether or not the medium was LinkedIn, text messaging, email, video, call, or referral, networking event. It doesn't matter the medium. What matters is how many conversations did we have today? That's the question that we should be talking about with our sellers. And what's changed, if you think about today's sales world, this is what we call the old way of selling. The old way of selling is where we, as sales leaders, we used to cold call, we email blast, we attended networking events, we did a referral. That's what we did. All in favor at 45 and older. That's how we grew up selling. Raise your hand. All in favor? Exactly. And now we're in a leadership position, and we're telling our salespeople, hey, go out and do this. Go send a video. Did you LinkedIn them? Did you send a message? But answer this question right here yourself. Do you know how to do it? Have you ever even created a 1-minute video and sent it to a prospect? Do you know how many seconds you have to be able to capture a buyer's attention on a video? You see, the thing is, as sales leaders, when we went out and trained our salespeople, we sat right there. Remember the little Y connector that we used to have, sit on the phone with them? We plugged right in, we listened to their calls, we would give them coaching right there. Anybody remember the Y connector? Am I the only old person in the room? Okay, the Y connector. Oh my gosh, most of us don't even remember that. That was when we sat there and we coached them. Why? Because we did it, and we knew how to do it well, and that's generally how we got promoted. But now we sit here and we say, well, geez, Mario, if the old way is not the current way, what is the current way? Well, let me be very, very, very clear. The old way is not dead. I would argue that it's dying, but it's not dead. But it is still central, right in the middle, as you can see here on the slide. And now, as a selling community, what do? We introduce text messaging. How many of you are using text messaging in your sales cadence today? And how many of you know actually what sellers are sending out via that text message? 1 person out of the 10 that raised their hand. 1. We have gotten to this point where we are not inspecting because we ourselves as sales leaders, did we ever use text message when we were selling? Yes or no? No, we didn't do it. So we have no idea. Now, we look at social networks. How many of you have ever said, hey, did you check them out on LinkedIn? Raise your hand. Did you check them out on LinkedIn? We asked if they research. What are they researching? Have you ever asked that question? What did you find? What did you learn? How are you going to use that information? How can you bridge the gap? Who else do you know? Who can get us a referral? Who can get us into that person's office? Did you look at the mutual connections? Did you reach out to every one of those mutual connections to get us in there? Why? Because we know from our old days of selling that referral selling is still the number one way to get into someone's office. Still the number one way to get into someone's office. Yet we have a tool that most of us in the room don't even know what is a mutual connection, a shared connection. And what do I say when I found someone that has a mutual connection to get me an introduction? Yet we as sales leaders have given these tools to our sellers and said, hey, go be successful and make quota. Yet we would never have done that when we put them on the phone. Never. We would have trained our sellers the right way to call. We would have trained our sellers the proper phone voice, the 30-second pitch, how to be able to overcome objections. We would have trained them that skill, yet we have these other mediums now, and we're saying, go be successful, because all of us have not figured out how to do it. And now we move on into video. How many of you are using video right now in your sales cadence process for outreach? Okay. Now, of those people that are using video, how many of your sales leaders, you yourself, or if you're not a sales leader, thinking of your sales leader, how many of your sales leaders have sent you a video to show you how to do it correctly? 4 people out of the 20 that raised their hand. Wow, think about that. That's the pandemic. That's the epidemic that we're involved in right now. As a sales leadership community, we suck. Why do we suck? Because we are telling someone else to go do something that we ourselves have no knowledge about how to do properly. And this is where where the idea of tool and skill, say it with me, tool and skill come together. And now we look at digital referrals. Oh my God. The number one way to get into someone's office is through a. And how many of us, raise your hand if you have this. Remember that big old ball on our desk? We had the A through Z index cards. We used to crank that ball. Raise your hand if you remember it, first off. All right. Raise your hand if you actually still have one on your desk. All right. Nobody. Where's the digital Rolodex at? Where's our Rolodex at? CRM, right. But if we left the company, who has the Rolodex? Say it again. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your Rolodex, people. And now as the new modern seller, when we're interviewing modern sellers, we don't just care how many connections you have. We're actually in the interview process right now of hiring a seller. And the call that I had yesterday was, hey, if so great and made quota for the last 10 years, awesome. We sell to sales leaders. Do you have sales contacts? Oh yeah, plurific. They're all throughout my network. Great. You're in the central territory. So I want you tomorrow, which is today, I want you to come back and tell me what are all the companies that you're going to target and who are all the relationships that you have. And I want you to prove to me that you have first degree connections. That's the conversation that we're having during the interview process. Nothing has changed from the old school way to the present way. And now we move on, inbound. The buyer engages you. And many of our organizations have built teams and processes to be able to respond to those inquiries. You heard Lori Harmon say yesterday that her inbound team responds to a lead in how many minutes? 1 minute. That's what she said. 1 minute. You know, there are studies that were done that showcase if you respond back in less than 5 minutes, what the odds are that you'll be able to close a deal. And in fact, XANT actually produced some of that data themselves. So people, if we are getting inbound leads, you need to walk back to your organizations and say to them, hold on. How fast are my sellers getting this? And how do I know and ensure that they're going to respond to this in less than 5 minutes? Because guess what? The buyer was just online. And they're probably still there. And last but not least, sales AI. We actually have an AI SDR bot. She actually has a real personality. She actually connects with some of you in this room. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but if you want to find out, get onto our website and we'll start engaging with you and you'll figure out, whoa, she actually has a picture. She's on our About page. She actually connects on LinkedIn. She sends you a real LinkedIn message and she'll send you a real email. Now, that's very strategic, and if you want to know some really strategic ways on how to use a personality like that, let us know and we can help you. But those are some ways. This is the new omni-channel way to prospecting. And the biggest problem is you've trained your sellers from hello to close. From hello to close, meaning you put them through 2-day workshops and sales training. But how much have you helped them learn pre-hello using these tools and technologies? Or have you done this? Hey guys, we have the greatest news, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the new tool from whatever organization for video sales acceleration. And we're also introducing text message. Here you go. Go be successful. Go make some videos. What? You haven't connected them on LinkedIn? Did you tell them how to do it? That's our problem today with sales leadership, is we have not enabled the skill. And our sellers are taking less than 3% response rates on email and less than 10% response rates on phone. And they're bringing it to these new mediums, expecting different results. And that is the definition of, say it with me, insanity. So what I hope that you get out of this is like, whoa, we have a skill set deficiency. Now, if you don't believe me that this is actually real and that this stuff works, here's a study that was done by XANT Research. And it showcased that when a rep uses 1 to 2 mediums of outreach, so let's just say phone and email, standard process, they have about 10% buyer level engagement. But if they introduce just one more for 3 to possibly 4, so add on LinkedIn, add on a video, add on a text, add on wherever it might be, any other medium you want to engage with the buyer, direct mail, you increase your buyer level engagement by 400% to a 40% buyer level engagement. Just by doing one more step. And we as sales leaders need to be thinking about like, whoa, this has hit us right in the face. What do we do about this? All right. So if you understand now that today's modern buyer has changed the game on us, fundamentally flipped our world upside down, and you feel deficient in this area, don't worry, you're alone. So are many other sales leaders. But if you think that you're not deficient, I'm going to give you a pop quiz. We're going to do a test right here in the room. And you're going to prove to yourself whether or not you are or are not a modern sales leader. You ready for this? People, are you ready for this? Yes. All right, here we go. Here's our pop quiz. There are 6 questions that we will go through today, and you will determine whether or not you are a modern sales leader. Number 1, how many of you know how to send a personalized connection request on LinkedIn? Half the room. Now let me segment this one more level down. How many of you know how to do it on a mobile device? Half the room. Let's learn how to do that right now. Take your mobile devices out. Open up your LinkedIn application and just use me. If you're connected to me already and you know you're connected, use your neighbor next to you. Search Mario Martinez Jr. Mario Martinez Jr. Now, when you get to my profile on LinkedIn, those of you who are not connected to me, you will see a follow button. Raise your hand if you see a follow button on my profile. Now, how many of you know how to still send a personalized connection? Just a few. In all cases, whether there's a follow button or a connect button, do not hit the connect button on mobile. Do not hit the connect button on mobile. Why? What will happen? It won't let you send a personalized message. It'll be just some generic, no message, blank message that shows Mario Martinez wanted to connect with you. Rather, hit the more button or the button next to the follow and select personalized invite. Now just right inside there, next 2020. And this next 2020 and then hit send. And what that will do is on my side, it will actually show me that you actually found me, knew me, met me, whatever it might be. And the best part about it is it forever remains on my communication vehicle so long as I'm connected to you. Do you know how many people I've met today that I look back and said, oh yeah, man, we met back at 3 years ago. Great to meet you. So personalized connection requests. What I want you to take back to your sellers is never again allow your sellers to send a non-personalized connection request. Always personalize that connection request to that particular buyer. Don't do it. And we proved out on a study a couple years ago that we were able to get a 76% acceptance rate by actually personalizing our connection requests with 1,172 connection requests that we sent out. Now, the next question is how the hell do you convert them once you got them as a connection? Next question on our pop quiz. Raise your hand if you think you have 1 to 15 seconds to capture someone's attention on a personalized video, meaning your seller is sending it to a buyer. 1 to 15 seconds. Okay, about 25% of the room. Raise your hand if you think you have 16 to 30 seconds to capture someone's attention. 16 to 30. Only about 10% of the room. Now raise your hand if you think 31 to 45 seconds to capture someone's attention. All right, the answer is 7 to 15 seconds. You have 7 to 15 seconds to capture someone's attention on a video. But why, when we see videos come across our desk where we've seen them from our sellers, why do we have usually the big play button sitting right here square in our face? And that's what's being sent out to our buyers. Our buyers can't even see the smile, which is the first thing that builds trust through video. So we have to understand these dynamics, because if we're asking our sellers to go create videos, hey, they better not be centered in that thumbnail. They better be off-centered, as an example. And you better know the 7 to 15 seconds that they need to be able to capture someone's attention. All right, how many of you have a prospecting cadence that includes 3 to 5 mediums? Email, phone, LinkedIn, text messaging, direct mail, at least 3 to 5. Raise your hand. Only a small portion of the room. Right now, we as sales leaders are saying, go make phone calls, go send an email. No, expand that. And how many of us require a rep before making a phone call to use insights from XANT, as an example, from playbooks that says information they should understand about this buyer, or if you don't have XANT, that you're at least doing 3 minutes worth of research? Only one person raised their hand. We've got to be thinking about personalizing, bringing back some H to H. Does anybody know what H to H is? Say it again. Human to human connection. Digital tools doesn't mean that we stop that human to human connection. And number 5, 62% of buyers go here before engaging with your seller. Where is that? Website. Everybody say website. The answer is, if your seller has reached out to a buyer, 62% of buyers look back at your seller's LinkedIn profile. 62%. Now ask yourself this question. I want you to go back and look at all your seller's profile, and does it read quota-crushing sales rep, 10-time President's Club earner, best all-time contract negotiator, or worse yet, have their resume in the summary section? And if that's the case, we have severely missed the idea of what we need to do as sales leaders in terms of cleaning up that messaging. And last but not least, do you realize that you have a talent recruitment page, your personal talent recruitment page, that helps attract the talent that you're looking to hire, that helps them understand who you are, and what you're all about, that actually tells them what other people, can help the new hire, help them understand your personality, what you're like, what other people say about you. What is it? Say it again. Your LinkedIn page. How many recommendations do you have from people that have worked for you or with you so that you can make the right hire at the right time? Now, if you missed a couple of these, you're not alone. You're not alone. And what I would say to you is I just have 2 more slides left, and I know I'm over time. I'm sorry, Chris. I'm taking a couple minutes here. I want you to take a tip back. Take your phones out. You're not going to go on any email distribution list. Don't worry. Just send an email to mario@vengreso.com and watch what you get back. I promise you've never seen this before. And this is one of the 16 ways that we teach sellers in our Selling with Video sales training to be able to engage back with buyers. It is extremely effective with a 50+% open rate. A 50+. Any marketer in the room would die for a 50+% open rate. So send a message to Mario at Vengreso. Just put in the subject line, next 2020. That's all you have to do, and the trigger will happen. The trigger will happen. And it's a very simple process, and don't play it when you get it, okay? Everybody got that? Got it? Good? Mario at Vengreso.com. Next, there are 3 choices that you can make now at this point. You can do absolutely nothing based upon everything that you heard today, everything that you heard yesterday about how the modern buyer has changed the game. You can do nothing, and you can be like those companies that I mentioned earlier. You can let the competition go first and say, not applicable in our industry. We're old, we're in petroleum, we're chemicals, we're life science, we're whatever it is. Our buyers aren't there yet. You can do that. Or the message that you heard yesterday from Frank and others, you can adapt. And you can do something right now. And the things that you're going to learn later on about XANT's platform and the things that they're bringing forth are going to help you adapt along with skill enhancement and training. And what I would say to you is get help. Don't go at it alone. If you need some assistance, we at Vengreso, we do a digital selling benchmark report. We can assess your sales team, and we can help in that regard because most sales leaders have no idea where to start first. Now, I hope that was of value to you, and what you walk away with thinking about those 6 things that I mentioned earlier, if you failed on any 1 or 2 of those categories, you need help, and so do your sales team. And what I want to do is say thank you so much to the XANT team for having Vengreso. I hope you enjoyed that presentation and enjoy the rest of the program.